Hey, Todd.
Hey, Ryan.
We are back. Buffalo Boys Season 2. I know you've been patiently waiting out there, fans of the podcast, girlfriends and wives who are forced to listen to the podcast. Hello, greetings. As always, it is your pal Ryan, along with my pal, your pal, Todd. Todd, it's been a while. I don't think we've talked all summer. How's everything going?
Ryan, it's great to be back. I am thrilled. Let me tell you that. I wasn't for a long time after the 2022 season ended, but it's a new season. There's hope. There's excitement. I am ready to bring this back, run it back again, and do it even better. You know, I don't think anyone out there is ready for the improvement, let alone that we're coming back. So we're going to hit the ground strong. We have our momentum, and yeah, it's been a good summer down here in Miami. What about you?
It's been great, traveling a lot. Been to Europe a couple times. Feel like a real globetrotter in 2023. It's been a great one. Very blessed. But yeah, happy to finally be back in football season. The temp is coming down a little bit. I think you are like me, Todd. We're both sweaty boys. Maybe we don't do so well in the sunshine and the 95-degree plus days. But football season means cooler weather ahead, which I'm excited about. I'm sure you're excited about too. And it's great to hear that you are looking forward to a new season. Obviously, you were last place last year, so you can only go up, and I'm sure that you will. I saw that you recently posted your last place punishment, not to get too far ahead of myself, but you decided to do a beer mile. And first off, I want to just say thank you for being, I believe, the first owner to properly do his last place punishment. You were a real gentleman and a sport for that. But tell me about that last place punishment, how you decided to do the beer mile, and how did it go?
Definitely. But, you know, before we get too far down the line, I'm afraid one of our sponsors is yelling from his bar or wherever he's listening from right now, because he did fulfill his punishment by buying you the first trophy for this league.
That's right. Our good friend Doug Black over at Mattress Blacks. How could I forget? As I'm looking at the trophy here, you can't see it on camera, Todd, but it is shining in the light from my fan, and it looks beautiful. It's got my name there twice. Maybe your name will be under mine this year. Who's to say? But yeah, I totally forgot that was Doug's last place punishment, and he is also a gentleman and a friend for doing that and giving us this wonderful trophy.
The beer mile just seemed to be the most fun, the most interactive. Everyone gets to like see some of it. And you know, the early reviews from the league mates have been glowing. Everyone's been thrilled with the contribution. And you know, it's just good for me. Get out there, run a mile. I also had never tried to run and have beer in me at the same time, so that was a new experience. I didn't like starting off with the chug and then running. I wish I could get like a lap in first, so maybe I should have done like a little bit of warm up, but I just went chug straight into it and felt it right away in the 87-degree weather, but powered through.
That you did power through. I personally have never done a beer mile. It is my understanding that you basically run a mile and drink a beer per mile. So did you end up running 6 miles and chugging 6 beers? How did that work?
Yeah, so you do 4 beers and you do it for 1 mile. So you do every quarter mile. So you just run around the track once, then grab a beer or drink a beer, run around the track one time, drink a beer, run around the track one time, drink a beer, run around the track. So you do 4 laps around the track, which totals 1 mile. There's a lot more like formal rules on like, there's a period where you can drink and you can move still. And I didn't go that hardcore, but yeah, 4 beers, 4 Bud Lights, and 1 mile later.
Okay, got it. Wow. I mean, how were you feeling after that 4th beer? I think Nixon was the one who commented as you were leaning against the fence. It looked like you were feeling something in the old belly. How were you feeling after that 4th beer?
I had a couple burps that I had to get out. You know, once I did, we were smooth sailing.
Good. Well, yeah, listen, that was a great OC as always. You provide a lot of great OC to the league, which we appreciate. And yeah, it was a great way to start off the 2023 season. So shout out to you for doing that. That was great.
Speaking of beer, though, Ryan, do you have anything that you're sipping on that the audience would care to hear about? It is your birthday after all, Ryan, so I hope you have something tasty.
I do. I actually have something special, Todd. I was up in Louisville this weekend for a cousin's wedding, and I found, randomly enough in Louisville, I wasn't expecting much as far as craft beer goes. I found one of the coolest beer stores I've ever been to in my entire life in Louisville.
Wow.
I believe the place is called Jose's World Beers. It's quite the place. It's like a whole story. But anyway, they had just an unbelievable amount of old vintage beers. You know, I'm a vintage beer nerd, and I picked this one up. I don't know if you've had this, J.W. Lee's Harvest Ale. This is their 2001 vintage, which
Wow.
means this is a 22-year-old beer. Easily the oldest beer that I have ever attempted to drink. It is currently capped, but I will definitely let you know how it is. I'm really excited. I think it got a 4.28 rating on Untapped, which means that it holds up after 22 years. Kind of surprising.
Wow.
But yeah, really looking forward to that one. I see that you've got something dark. Is that a local Miami barrel-aged stout? Something that maybe we've enjoyed together before? What are you drinking?
Somewhat local. It's from Funky Buddha. It's a maple bacon coffee porter. So haven't taken a sip yet, but it smells delicious so far.
Absolutely. I think I know where you're going. Go.
Ryan, when your beer is of legal drinking age, there's a punchline there that I just don't have, but it's interesting.
When your beer is older than most of Jimmy's, fuck. I don't know. There's a Jimmy joke in there. I don't know.
Or somewhere.
Yeah, there's a joke in there somewhere. Yeah, anyway, Todd, sounds like a great beer, and cheers to you.
Cheers, Ryan.
All right, Todd. So I figured since the draft is tomorrow, we're recording this on Monday. Hopefully we have it out in time for the draft. But since the draft is tomorrow, I figured we would stick in 2022 a little bit and recap the season that we had. So obviously, I mentioned that you were last place. Before we get into that, I was the 2022 WPFL champion back-to-back years, even shocking myself. It was quite the season. I beat Doug in the final with a stellar Patrick Mahomes performance. It was a big step up for Doug, who in the last 3 seasons had missed the playoffs and had finished 12th, 13th, and 14th. Maybe that new Mattress Black business, all those sales that he was having, maybe some customers came in and gave him some tips on a draft or you know, who to pick up in free agency, because it really worked for our friend Doug. Yeah, he had a huge turnaround. It's a pretty wild turnaround, considering that Doug was last place 2 years ago, and you played me in my first championship. Obviously, I picked up the victory. Then you were last place. So it's just interesting how you and Doug kind of made the flip-flop there. Sort of a Freaky Friday style. I don't know if you guys had changed bodies or something. But yeah, I mean, tell me a little bit about how 2022 went for you, Todd.
Yeah, definitely. Before I jump in there, props to Doug, as that was only his second time in the playoffs during the auction era. You know, for someone who has the moniker of draft god, he sure couldn't finish the season strong. So we'll see if his in-season management can keep up with his drafting skills, alleged drafting skills, that is. Yeah, real unfortunate season for me. It definitely hurt, but want to give you props. You know, third time we've had back-to-back winners. Mike Simpson did it first, Dave did it second, right before you, and you know, we haven't had a three-peat, so I know you got your eyes set on the prize there, and I'm gunning for a first-time championship, and I feel good about it. Tomorrow is going to be a good day. We're going to set ourselves up to succeed, and we're going to bring back last year's bold prediction of having a first-time champ in this season.
Yeah, Todd, I can't wait to talk about your draft strategy a little bit later in the podcast, but you mentioned it. Our bold prediction that we said in the first episode of Buffalo Boys at the beginning of last season was that we would have a new champion. And the guy who I picked as my new champion, who I thought was going to win last year, was Mims. And I have to give a shout out to Mims. He ended up in third place last year. I think now, you might have to correct me here, Todd, but I believe in his first 3 seasons, Mims has finished 5th, 3rd, and 3rd. So I think this is his second, third place finish in a row. Really just coming out of the gate, incredibly strong. This is a guy that we really need to get on owner orientation. I would love to pick his brain as far as what he's doing in the draft, what he's doing with free agency. But yeah, his finish was absolutely incredible. Any thoughts on Mims' performance last year?
I can't tell you how much fan mail from the fans of the Buffalo Boys podcast. I can't even keep up with all the requests to get Mims on owner orientation. So Mims, the people want you. We want you. We're excited to have you on, and maybe to get a little bit more wise in terms of fantasy football strategy. You know, what's truly remarkable is his stellar start and his consistency. 3 seasons, 3 awesome finishes. His regular season has been even better, where he's been 3, 2, and 3 over the past 3 seasons. He also averages a full game more in terms of average wins than the second place team. So he averages in a given season 9.33 wins compared to second place, which is Mike at 8.31. Now, yes, we had an extra game in the past season, but I don't think that's gonna weight too heavily. It's just remarkable how consistent his regular season wins are. And I looked through his drafts to see if there were any unusual trends. And I found this nugget, Ryan. Bear with me, because it's one of the league's favorite topics: kickers. Did you know that he drafts his kicker on average 54 spots earlier in the draft than anyone else, walking away with the kicker on average by pick 29? Everyone else likes to wait, but maybe that's the key to his success. Getting that kicker early, locking that in, that has to be it, right?
It might be. That's a really interesting stat that you bring up there, Tom, and something we should definitely ask him about. That is really interesting. Now, I would like to quickly sort of go over the rest of the standings for last year. Anything notable that stands out to you, Todd? I mean, as I'm looking at the standings right here, I know that week 1, I was listening back to our Buffalo Boys episode 1 at the beginning of the 2022 season. We were really giving Rick a hard time as sort of being an absentee manager, not doing very well. He ended the season 6th. He made the playoffs, and he was pretty solid overall, 8-6. I mean, was there anything that stood out to you about Rick's team in particular, and any other and their standing that sort of stuck out to you?
Yeah, so Rick, in his 5th season, finally made it to the playoffs. That was definitely impressive. It was not what I anticipated. It really killed my weekly projections for who would win last year, so that wasn't fun either. Rick definitely benefited from getting the quote-unquote surprise out of Josh Jacobs. When you can get a guy that late or for relatively cheap in a salary cap draft, you're going to be off to a good start. And he played through the whole season. So the lack of injuries on the running back front, at least, really buoyed his success there. What I thought was most interesting, Ryan, was there was, Freaky Friday style, to quote you. The playoff contenders were basically all unusual outside of Mims last year. 4 out of 6 teams who averaged not making the playoffs throughout the tenure of their time in West Park. So teams that more often than not do not make the playoffs, 4 out of 6 teams were in the playoffs. And conversely, the teams that normally make the playoffs were all at the bottom. It's like the whole chart flips in the standings, except for Mims, because, he's Mims. And shout out to Adler. But
shout out to Adler. Happy birthday, big guy.
Happy birthday, Adler.
Speaking of injuries, I have to talk about Mike Simpson's team for a second. Again, I'm looking at our final standings, and while Mike ended the season 9th out of 14, not awful, he did have the worst regular season record of any other owner. His team was 4-10, but I know he suffered a lot of injuries last season. Anything about Mike's team and his luck that sort of stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, when you have as many championships as Mike does, it's hard to throw stones, but it is interesting. The past 3 regular season finishes for him have been 6th, 7th, and 14th. So he's on his worst streak of not making the playoffs, i.e. 2. He had not missed since until 2021 and then again in 2022. So he hadn't been worse than 7th, and all of a sudden he dropped all the way to 14th in terms of his regular season finish. So that was pretty striking. What was worse, though, to bring this back to me, was that he beat me in the second round of the losers bracket, where we had the 2 highest scores out of any team in the playoffs, and he beat me by 0.4 points.
Brutal.
Just brutal scheduling. And I still complain how we have the losers bracket set up, but I won't bore everyone at home here with that.
Obviously, to make things worse potentially for Mike, his brother Jimmy had the best record of anyone. And this must have been really brutal for Jimmy not to at least make a finals appearance and obviously not to win the championship. But his team went 10-4 in the regular season. I mean, they were really impressive. I'm looking here. I believe he scored the most points out of any team. He was number 1 just past Nixon. Anything that stood out about Jimmy's team for you?
It's hard not to correlate his success with his new job where he can sit on Excel and play around with stats all day. The effort was finally there. The time was finally there. The stars aligned for him. And thank goodness, because he had a 6-year playoff drought, Ryan. 6 years. I couldn't imagine fighting for that long, not even to make the playoffs. We're not talking about practice. We're talking about playoffs.
It's a little Jim Mora for you young kids out there. Great season by Jimmy. I can't wait to see what he does this season.
Well, Ryan, speaking of success, we have to come back to the champ here. I'm interested if you can give us two points, 2 highlights. What were 2 keys for your successful season last year?
Well, Todd, I think I drafted really well for another season in a row. And I do definitely have a drafting strategy now. I'm a little hesitant to say it. Maybe we'll talk about it a little later in the podcast. But I think I drafted really well. And a couple guys that really helped me out was, first of all, Patrick Mahomes, QB number 1, 416.9 fantasy points last season. I mean, we really put the team on his shoulders, and he really helped us when we needed it. I mean, he scored 25 big points in the final against Doug. He was a absolute monster the entire season. I mean, just Mr. Consistent. I mean, just always playing well. Another one, I drafted Jonathan Taylor. I believe he was first or second. I think he was my first overall pick. Spent $78 on him, quite a lot of money, and he ended up being injured. But when he was healthy, he wasn't too bad. He was pretty good, actually. I ended up with running back number 5 in Nick Chubb, who really, really helped me. I think he was undervalued for how much I paid for him, and he was awesome. I also ended the season with number 4 kicker Jason Myers. It was great. And then a guy who I had all season, number 9 wide receiver Devontae Smith, who I spent $5 on. Again, a guy who just really gave me a lot of value. Call it good drafting. The stars aligned for me, Todd, and happy to be a back-to-back champion.
Yeah, man. I mean, you can't fault when you get value out of your big dollars spent and on the little ones, the Devontae Smith picks. You can't win without those. So good work there.
Thank you. Let's quickly go over the best players from 2022 on a fantasy level by position. We'll start out with QBs. Patrick Mahomes, obviously QB number 1, 416.9 fantasy points. But I do have a question for you, Todd. I don't know if you know this. Which QB had the best point average last season, like points per game? And I'll give you a hint. It was not Patrick Mahomes.
Not Patrick Mahomes. This is a good one. Way to turn trivia on me, Ryan.
Thank you.
Was not right. Points per game. I mean, it has to be Jalen Hurts, right?
It is Jalen Hurts, 25.2 points per game. I saw that today, and I found that to be a pretty interesting stat. So well done, Todd.
I knew that one well. He was the bread and butter of my apathetic team last year.
Running back number 1 was Austin Eckler, 319 points. That was followed pretty closely by Christian McCaffrey at 313. I think that's a pretty impressive stat, considering that Christian McCaffrey was on a not good Carolina Panthers team last year, basically for half of the season, and then went to San Francisco and really just continued to perform. So anyway, it'll be really interesting to see who people value running back wise in the draft this season. When looking at the top running backs, Todd, anything you have to say about Eckler or McCaffrey or anybody else who performed pretty well last season?
It's interesting. You had your pass catchers in CMC and Eckler. both getting pretty old. I believe CMC was 26 and Eckler was 27 during the season last year. And then you also had your workhorse backs with Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry up there. So two different strategies, that can inform the draft. A lot of people like to lean on those pass catching backs, but if you can get one of those tried and true 300 plus carry backs, does well for you.
Absolutely. Number one wide receiver last year was Justin Jefferson. He had 304 points. And number two wasn't really even that close. 20 points behind him was Tyreek Hill, who also had a fantastic season. But the fact that Justin Jefferson was 20 ahead of him really sort of shows you the type of season that Jefferson had. I mean, it really just went off for a pretty fun to watch Minnesota Viking team. And I'm sorry to say that as a Packers fan there, Todd. Anything about the wide receiver core, the top performing wide receivers last year that sort of stuck out to you?
Yeah, we really have a lot of talent in the NFL right now at wide receiver. A lot of young talent. You got a couple older guys aging out with Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill's getting up there. I think we're going to see a turning of the guard here with all these second and third year wide receivers. You've got Olave already finishing well. You've got Garrett Wilson finishing well. I think we're going to see a lot of them up at the top of the charts next to Chase and Justin Jefferson.
Speaking of talented pass catchers, number one tight end, probably a surprise to no one, Travis Kelce, 261 points last season. And talk about a disparity. Second place tight end was TJ Hawkinson at 172 points. Travis Kelce almost had 100 points more. This is a guy who we knew was always going to turn out, have a great season. He's had great seasons for the last couple of years. I mean, Todd, what is there to say that hasn't already been said about Travis Kelce?
I don't know, man. I didn't believe in him last year. I thought he was aging out. Very few have done this even close to the level that he has. Maybe Tony Gonzalez at this age. So I didn't believe in him. I also probably don't believe in him this year. I hope he doesn't prove me wrong again. I do think we saw some of the regular tight ends that would be up there, like Kittle, Waller, Andrews. They all were kind of banged up. So we saw a weak top tier last year, and I think you're going to see an overreaction in the draft this year.
You think so? Okay. I guess we'll see. I mean, listen, when a tight end scores almost 100 points more than the second place guy, I mean, maybe there's something to it, but he can't go on forever like this. I mean, people do age, so it'll be an interesting season for him and the Chiefs. And to quickly wrap it up, number one defense last year was the Patriots. They had 191 points, and number one kicker was not Cousin Randy. It was Justin Tucker. Perhaps no surprise, 162 points for him. Easily the best kicker in the league, in my opinion. Anything that stood out to you as far as our defenses went or our kickers went there, Todd?
Just trust the process. Patriots have been there. Tucker's been there. There's no surprises. Go with the good guys that have been good. It's hard to discount Belichick, especially when you only have Mac Jones throwing the ball. So they're not scoring a lot of points these days. So the defense has a little bit easier job in keeping the points down. So, and gosh, Tucker is so good. Like, he makes watching kicking field goals enjoyable.
Enjoyable perhaps for everybody else, not enjoyable for a Steelers fan. When he gets on the field, you basically know that your team is either losing their lead, the lead is getting cut, or the deficit will get even farther. I mean, he's almost automatic. Shout out to Justin Tucker. The only compliment I'll give the Ravens this entire season, hopefully. All right, Todd, again, that was our top performing players in fantasy last year. Really looking forward to the draft tomorrow. Really looking forward to who people value, who they're going to pick up. A big question for me is Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, he's had his injuries. I bought him for $78. I mean, if he's healthy and playing, he is definitely RB number one. But there are a lot of questions. Obviously, there's the issues with the front office and him right now. He may not even end the season with the Colts. Before we get into draft strategy, is there anything you want to say about Jonathan Taylor?
The Packers were allegedly in on trading for him. Now, I don't really want that to happen, but it would be cool to get Taylor back in the great state of Wisconsin because he was a Badger in college. So that would be fun having him back. I don't think he should go for as much this year. So we'll see if we'll see who overspends on him.
as we're joined by a very special guest, first-time Buffalo Boy guest, hopefully an owner orientation guest soon, Jimmy Simpson. Jimmy, welcome to the pod.
Hey, hello, hi.
Any thoughts about Jonathan Taylor this year?
Y'all can have him.
All right.
Those are all my thoughts on Jonathan Taylor.
Okay. Well, I was hoping you would take
piece of that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also scared.
All right, Ryan, Jimmy, back with the fan favorite. We've got our trivia section, and I've been jotting down little bits of trivia as they've come along all summer. So I think I got a couple of good ones. We got 4 or 5 here for us today. So I think it's going to be fun. We're not going to spend too much time on any one in particular, but I think they'll be pretty interesting. With the first trivia question, teams with 2 top 24 running backs and PPR points per game in the last 5 years. Can you name the 6 teams in the last 5 years that have had 2 top 24 running backs in PPR points per game?
I will let our guests go first.
I'm going to go. My first guess will be the 49ers.
They were not.
Hey, Todd, I've got 3 guesses already. If you don't mind, Jimmy, I want to just put all these out there. If that's cool.
Go for it.
Todd, I'm thinking Detroit Lions, Indianapolis Colts, and the Dallas Cowboys.
Which seasons?
Which seasons? I have no idea.
Cowboys. Let's go with Cowboys last season.
Yep. That's the most recent example. Pollard at RB8, Zeke at RB22.
Okay, that's a little. I still like the Detroit Lions. I mean, Swift and surely somebody else.
I've got one. I think this is a good pick. Did the Falcons do it last year as well?
They did not. But Detroit is correct as well for last year with Swift at 15 and Jamal at 18. Now we've got one from 2021, one from 2020, one from 19, and one from 18.
I feel like the Colts have to be in there somewhere. Jonathan Taylor and maybe like Naheem Hines. No?
Nope. The reason that I think this question is interesting is you've got several pairs that are being talked about as being top 24 talents, like Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. You've got Brees and Cook now. There's a lot of big name talents, but this is a fairly infrequent occurrence. So I'm just going to run down the last 4 here. We had Cleveland twice with Chubb and Hunt.
Oh, duh. Yeah.
And my last guess will be the Patriots, maybe, and then I'm done.
Nope.
Okay.
We have an interesting one on here. So there's Eckler and Melvin Gordon in 19. And then in 18, Lenny Fournette and TJ Yeldon.
TJ Yeldon.
Interesting.
Finished RB22.
Wow.
All right, this next one should be a little easier. This team will field a wide receiver and tight end room, like combined starters of wide receivers and tight ends, with an average age of 23.4 years old this season. The average age of starting wide receivers and starting tight ends, their average age of 23.4 years old. Which team is this?
I'm gonna go with the Packers.
You'd be right. This is interesting because this will be the second.
I don't even know who their tight end is.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Luke Musgrave, the rookie.
That makes sense. I was going off of Dobbs and Watson.
And Jalen Reed for wide receiver 3. But this will be the second youngest core of wide receivers and tight ends going back through 1990, only behind the 2017 Browns, who went 0-16. Truly a youth movement.
Does that mean that the Packers are also potentially headed to a pretty historically bad season, Todd?
We'll see.
As Jimmy nods his head. Right.
I think the Vikings are coming in 4th this year.
Bold move.
You're out of your mind. You don't actually. Right. No way.
I do.
Okay.
All right. With our next one here, this team finished dead last in offensive success rate in weeks 13 through 18. This team finished dead last in offensive success rate in weeks 13 through 18
of last season.
Can you define offensive success rate? Just like scoring points?
A play is considered successful when it gains at least 40% of yards to go on first down, 60% of yards to go on second down, and 100% of yards to go on third down or fourth down. So they're basically able to move the ball consistently.
So this was the worst team in there.
I've got a guess.
I also have a guess. You go first.
Carolina Panthers.
Oh, that was my guess.
That was your guess?
Yeah, it was my guess.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the Bills because I know they had a terrible end to the season, and Josh Allen was like awful towards the end of the season.
Right division, wrong team. It was actually the Dolphins.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
People don't realize that they actually just fell apart. And, ever since that 49ers game, week 11 or week 12, the script was out. Maybe it was Tua being hurt, but they actually didn't have a good offense.
Yeah, I do remember them sort of imploding at the end of the year. Another guy that I don't know if I would touch next to Jonathan Taylor this season, Tua. Just a lot of question marks there.
I mean, if you touch him, he might get concussed, so that's a good strategy.
Well said, Todd.
A little insensitive, but, his family's not listening.
He's not listening.
For question number 4, how many consecutive years has a rookie running back finished in the top 16? How many consecutive years has a rookie running back finished in the top 16?
I mean, 16 is half of the starting running backs, and I feel like there's at least 1 or 2 rookies who start every. So I mean, this could go back 25 years. I have no idea.
Did you give us a time frame, or you just how many years in a row?
How many consecutive years? Yeah, I'm gonna say 15. I don't know. I'll just throw it out there.
I'm gonna say 16.
All right. It was actually 11 straight years. I don't know who it was back then that screwed it up 12 years ago, but and further to that, a rookie running back has finished top 10 in 9 of the last 11 years and top 6 in 4 of the last 6 years. So the top 10 running back, 9 of the last 11 years. So basically the top running back always finishes top 10 in who we're drafting, and top 6 in the last 4 of the last 6 years. So truly, our rookie running backs are usually undervalued in West Park, honestly.
So I heard a stat, I think it was on the CBS Fantasy Podcast, and they said in the past 10 years, any rookie that's gone in the top 10 overall picks, they average like 1,500 yards from scrimmage, 275 touches, and 10 touchdowns.
Oof. Wow. That's a really interesting stat.
And that's players like Najee, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, those are all their rookie years. They average those stats.
All right, last trivia question here. This team is currently seeing their wide receiver 1 drafted lowest for a top 5 ADP QB in the last decade. So 4 teams that have a top 5 ADP QB, their wide receiver 1 usually goes pretty high. But this team this season is currently seeing their wide receiver 1 drafted the lowest out of any team in the last decade.
That's got to be the Chiefs, right? Another wide receiver is being drafted lower than who even is it? Kadarius Toney?
I'm going to say the Bears.
Is Justin Fields a top 5 ADP quarterback?
Oh, how about the Eagles?
No, AJ Brown is getting drafted way high. We're
talking Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown, Jamar Chase, probably, right?
Right.
And then either Herbert and Jackson are probably the other 2 top 5. So then you're talking about Keenan Allen versus Odell Beckham Jr., right? Odell Beckham Jr. is being drafted lower than Kadarius Toney?
I think it's actually, I think the latest is Zay Flowers is getting drafted number 1. And they're in like the late 80s, early 90s or something like that. Point of the story there is, if we believe in Lamar, get your Ravens wide receiver.
I don't believe in Lamar. I just passed on him.
All right, my last question of the week here. So this isn't trivia. This is just to see which one of you gents can do a better job here. The question of the week is, pretend we are preparing for the 2011 season. The 2011 season. Who would you draft in order to win every game in fantasy? The 2011 season, who would you draft?
Jesus Christ. I mean, we're supposed to go at this blind? I mean, I don't even remember who were the big guys in 2011.
Can you name any of the top 10 in terms of final finish?
I'm sure Aaron Rodgers was a top 10 quarterback at the time.
He was number 1, yeah.
Brady
was up there, number 7.
Ben Roethlisberger.
2011. Oh, Megatron, right?
Yep, number 4.
Antonio Brown?
No, I don't think he was drafted yet. I think he was 13 or 14.
No, I thought I thought he was in the Super Bowl in 2009, wasn't he?
No.
Against the Cardinals?
Definitely
Against
not.
the Cardinals?
In 2009? No. He wasn't even
Oh,
in the Super Bowl
that
against
was
the
Santonio
Packers.
Holmes. Yeah, that was Santonio
Yeah.
Holmes. I'm trying to think of running backs. Matt Forte,
Nope, not very high up.
Adrian Peterson.
He was
Oh, man.
30th.
Okay, that was a good pick, Jimmy. I sort of cheated a little bit. Chris Johnson.
Oh, there it is. Gotta be.
No.
What?
Arian Foster.
Ding, ding, ding. Number 11.
Jamal Charles.
Nope. You guys want to hear some of the names?
Yeah, sure.
Was Maurice Jones-Drew on this list?
Yeah. Number 10.
Nice.
So the best
Was
players.
Ray Rice on there?
Yeah, Ray Rice was number 3. Ray Rice, Cam Newton. How could you forget Cam Newton?
It's easy to forget Cam Newton.
Gronkowski, Brady, Shady, Stafford, Jordy, Jimmy Graham, Wes Welker, Fitzgerald, Steve Smith, Marshawn, Michael Turner, to name a few.
Michael Turner. That's a throwback.
Great segment as always, Todd. Historically, I'm not good at trivia, and I continue not to be good at trivia. So luckily, Jimmy was here for some of the assists. Last segment before we go, we're talking draft strategy in this latest draft. It is tomorrow. Jimmy, I'll let you go first. I mean, do you have a draft strategy going in? I mean, anything you would like to sort of put out there in the public?
This will be my 5th draft this year, and I think my first 3, I basically went 0 running back, including a dynasty league where my running backs are my best running back is AJ Dillon. So I don't know. Maybe I'll change it up, but that has been my strategy in my previous drafts. Not in the one I'm currently in though, just because of the way it felt. But
well, whatever you did last year ended up working. We were talking earlier, but you had the best overall regular season record at 10-4. I think you broke a 6-year playoff drought, which is a big deal. How did you feel about last season? How it went? I mean, how disappointing was it to not be able to make the finals?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was super disappointing to not make the finals. I think I got pretty lucky. Lucky that Neil gave me Travis Kelce for J.K. Dobbins and Curtis Samuel. Thanks, Neil. Shout out to you, my big boy. And lucky that I got Justin Fields like 2 weeks before everyone else wanted him. He was just kind of sitting on my bench, and I played him during a bye week, and he got like 45 points. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it again.
Jeez.
So yeah, he and Travis Kelce kind of carried me. Amon-Ra St. Brown was great. But I think I got a little bit fortunate with those 2 transactions. But like my starting base was Austin Eckler and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then I got 2 really good pickups mid-season. So I guess that's my strategy is let Neil draft the tight ends and then give him like cents on the dollar for him.
If you can do it, it works. Clearly.
Talk to me, Neil. You're gonna be listening to this tomorrow, probably, or whenever you listen to your podcast. Hit me up.
Well, good luck, JB. I hope it goes well for you. Todd, you had an interesting draft strategy last year. You were really the boom or bust guy. You definitely went bust. Tell me how you're thinking about the draft this year.
Well, I don't think it's appropriate just to say all bust. You know, I had Breece Hall, who was RB6 when he got his ACL torn. And I had, like you pointed out, the number 1 QB in points per game, but he also had some injuries. You know, Gabe Davis also struggled with an injury for the better part of last season. I can't remember what it was. And yeah, some of the booms didn't boom, and that didn't feel great. I always go into every draft just trying to identify the value, and I didn't course correct quickly enough when our RB1s were going for cheaper than I thought that they should. So it just messed up all of my downstream projections. So then I kind of missed the boat on the top tier running backs outside of Breece, and had to start overpaying for a couple of the boomy guys in the mid rounds. So, you know, the year before I'd always wanted to walk away with an RB1 at the least, and I don't think I did a good job of that. So looking for value, we'll see.
All right. Well, good luck to you as well. The last 2 years, I've gone heavy on running backs early, and I haven't been afraid to spend money on running backs. Derrick Henry 2 years ago. I think you said I spent $87 on him. Last year it was Jonathan Taylor with 78. I'm going to do the same. I mean, if I have an opportunity, I'm going to go high on one of these guys. Maybe that's not a smart thing to say out loud. Maybe some people are going to want to trap me in something, but I don't know. It's worked the last 2 years. So, all right, boys. Well, that was our pre-draft episode 1 of the 2023 Buffalo Boys season, 2023 WPFL season. Really looking forward to it. Looking forward to see you guys tomorrow. And good luck in the draft.
Thanks, Ryan. Always a pleasure. Jimmy, thanks for coming on. We're excited for the draft tomorrow. Hopefully I crush you guys. We'll see how it goes. But to all of our faithful listeners, we'll see you again shortly.
And remember, don't get buffaloed.